about Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Pewtercast.
Welcome to the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host, back with you in less than 24 hours from our last podcast. Joined as always by my good friend, Ren, the turtleneck wearing Dax. Ren.
Yes.
2 shows in 2 days. I feel like JPP making some interceptions.
My neck is abnormally long and skinny.
That would have been a fashion statement back in medieval Europe, brother.
Well, duh. Where do you think I got it from?
You and Queen Elizabeth the First.
Yeah, it's just, it's like, I am no Mike Glennon, but when I catch myself in the mirror, like sideways, I've never really been comfortable with like the length of my neck, and I kind of always, not always, but it kind of like leans forward like that too. So like the center of my skull is really like over my chest. I'm just kind of weird like that. Anyway, that's why I wear turtlenecks all the time. In
5 years of podcasting with you, I have never ever heard this before.
You never made fun of my turtlenecks before.
I was not making fun. I was complimenting.
I'm sorry. Let's start over.
Welcome to the Ren, the turtleneck wearing Dax.
Thank you. Glad to be here. What's up, man?
Man, hey, listen, I am I don't know. I'm excited. We're a couple of days away from this game. Got a lot out of our system last night on Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, we did.
Talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you guys want to check that out, please go see that. I want to say hello to everybody who is joining us live over in the chat room, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Periscope, Twitter, maybe you're on Facebook, maybe you're joining us at our website, thepewtercast.live, or maybe you're listening, as many thousands of you will later on the podcast feed. Hello to you and wherever you are. This is our Buck in the News show for week 12, Bucs versus the Chiefs. And this is the show for those of you who may be joining us for the first time. And if that's you, welcome. This is the show where basically what we've done is we have not talked about anything really going on this week with the Buccaneers in saving it for this show. We found it's best let the cycle play out over the course of the whole week. And at this point, the Buccaneers are done with their work week. There's nothing left for them to do but to play the game. The final injury reports are out. They've made their roster moves. The headlines have come out, and now it's time for us to talk about them.
The week that was.
Ren,
yes.
The week that was. The week that is still happening. But we are not here alone, Ren.
We are not.
Per tradition this year, we have guests.
11 shows.
Right. Making it 12 in a row here. We have a guest. Now, this particular guest this week is breaking a little bit of a rule that we've had.
It is.
We sort of this year said we're not going to do media members. We're going to bring in friends from the podcasting world and have them come in. But we have a member of the media who is here with us. Right.
All the podcasters have refused, so we had to switch gears.
We had to go back to our media people. Yeah, right. But this particular media person is very special, Ren. A couple of weeks ago, we did our top 10 media people, not quite personalities, but our media people.
Not personalities, yeah. People
and
we
this
trust,
person
people
made
we
your
follow.
top 10.
It did. No surprise. Spoiler alert. He'll be on in just a second. Jay Retcher from WDAE. I personally think, like I said on the pod, that he has the best sports mind there in the radio station, 446. Well, I still call it 620, and I'm still not really sure what the call sign is for FM 95.3. I really don't know. It's still 620 to me. Jay's giving me the thumbs up. He's off screen. Okay, I got it right. Good. But yeah, I've always liked him. He had a show. Then they did transition some things, and he's sort of like one of the head honchos behind the scenes and producing and program directing, and he does a lightning podcast, and he does a lot of stuff for pre and post game for USF, and he's done Bucs stuff pre and post game. So like I said, I like the way he thinks and as a sports mind, so I reached out to him. We've had some conversations back and forth. I tried to get him on for the post Rams game to host with me, but he said, "I have no idea who you are. Your turtleneck's ugly." No, he had to do some Buccaneer stuff.
Yeah, he had a job. He had a job to do.
He had a job to do. And he said, any other time? And I went, well, guess what? It's going to come pretty soon. You don't know this yet.
How about Friday?
And he agreed. So, yeah, he's here with us.
There you go. Well, let's waste no more time bringing him in. Executive producer at WDAE, Jay Retcher. Jay, welcome to the Pewtercast, my friend.
Guys, thanks for having me. Ren, thanks for putting me on your list. The check is in the mail, my friend. I hope food stamps are okay.
Yes. Can you wait? Can you buy cigarettes? No, you can't buy cigarettes with food stamps. I'll just sell them out in front of the corner store, 2 for 1.
Smart man.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes in these parts. But every time we have somebody on the first time on the show, I didn't prep you for this question, so I mean it's not gonna be a hard one.
It's all good.
Basically, you're born. Now you're here today. Fill in the blank. How'd you get here?
Oh, man.
What is your dash?
Oh, my gosh. Born in New York, lived there for 20 years, played a bunch of sports growing up. Instead of going to play college baseball, I decided to go to broadcasting school up in Oswego.
Where are you going to go play college baseball?
Quinnipiac was the place that I was looking at. A bunch of D2 and JUCO schools. I mean, I wasn't good enough to play D1, but I played hockey growing up, too. That was another offer. I was going to go play my senior year, going to play some prep hockey in Rhode Island. Decided to stay home. But instead of going to play baseball in college, I was like, am I really going to make the pros? Broadcasting was really what I like to do. I like all sports, all the 4 major sports, college sports, soccer, tennis, golf, Olympic stuff. I love it all. Moved here when I was 20 because all my friends were either selling drugs or doing drugs in New York. Didn't really want to get up on that. And then I coached baseball for a while. 2011, we won the Pony World Series as an 11-year-old team. Pretty proud about that.
Really?
One kid got drafted by the Marlins in the first round last year, and now $4 million richer than Coach Jay was or is. But I did that, and then 28, I went to broadcasting school, interned at WDAE, and worked my way up, man, from a weekend producer all the way up, and now I cover all the major sports, co-host on USF football, and just now I'm here with you guys, man. So, I mean, how much better could it really be?
That's true. This is your apex. Enjoy it. Look
Sure
around. Look around. Soak it all in.
Downhill from here.
You have finally arrived.
This is it. Yeah. The Super Bowl of podcasting. Mm-hmm. You have reached it.
I love it.
There you go. Well, Jay, man, like I said, really, thanks so much for agreeing to come on. Like we said, we're going to go through the list of everything that's happened with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. There's a question that I think I've kind of stopped asking in general, but you said you grew up in New York. You wound up coming down here and interning. When it comes to Tampa Bay sports in general, I'm not going to pin you into just the Buccaneers, but
that's fine.
The Lightning, the Rays, the Bulls, the Buccaneers. Even though you're media, do you kind of consider yourself a little bit of a fan, or would you be a fan if you weren't in media and weren't not allowed to be a fan, or whatever that looks like? Like, where would that lie for you? Or, is this just kind of where you've set down professional roots and you keep it strictly pro?
I definitely supported the Tampa teams when I moved down here about 15 years ago. Not as much as I did now because, you have interactions with the players. I mean, it's hard, even though I grew up and it's not, listen, my case is a lot different than everybody else. My great grandparents came over here from Switzerland and they were Yankee fans. My grandmother had a shrine at Thurman Munson after he passed away.
Wow.
Sports is in my DNA. My grandmother babysat Dr. J. Julius Erving. Like, that's just
What?
the way it goes. Like, my sisters are sports fans. It's just the way it is. But I understand that when people come down here and they don't leave their allegiances at home, it gives that kind of an icky feeling,
Right.
I'm a firm believer that you don't forget where you came from, but you damn sure better respect where you're at. And I know that's hard for some people to grasp, but I look at it like this, and I kind of use this analogy of, Archie and Olivia Manning didn't root for Peyton over Eli in those games because he was born first. They just, you just kind of enjoy the outcome and then you go from there. And that's where I get when, you get the Yankees playing the Rays or the Rangers playing the Lightning or the Giants playing the Bucs. It's just like, does it really matter who I want to win? I just want it to be a good game. I want everybody to be healthy. And I know that sounds like a PC answer and a lot of people can't get on board with that, but that's what makes me happy, and that's what I'm comfortable with. So that's what I go for. But yeah, I mean, I want to see these guys do well. And I know some of the media people, and I've had this conversation with guys, with Tom Jones, who used to be with the Tampa Bay Times. And he's like, you got to be stoic. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that, but I mean, you're not, Kevin Shattenkirk, played hockey at the same rink that my uncle used to be. How do you not want to pull for these guys? And I'm not going to sit here and be a cheerleader and have pom-poms, but come on, I think that's a little inhumane when it's just like, is it going to ruin my day if the Bucs, Lightning, or Rays lose? No, but you want to see them do well. You're around these guys. You're in their community. So I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope it answered your question.
No, we like long-winded answers. Yeah, yeah. This is the podcast where we don't do anything. We just go.
Question. Go.
Yeah, you were born. Continue, and then I walk away. Come back later. We used to ask that question a lot when we first, got into the media room at One Buc or Advent Training Health Center, and most everyone sort of had that kind of same answer.
No, Ren. We were in the media room when it was still One Buc.
There you go.
Okay,
we go back. we go far back.
Way back.
And we can just say One Buc,
like
and people might think like we're talking about the weight room outside of the little gas station over by the airport. Yeah. They might think that, which is not true. But, most of the people say, well, you become fans of the players. Like you start to like these people, but you're not a fan of the organization. And then after being there a couple years, the shine of a NFL football organization being a fan on it is definitely different from the inside. I don't want to sit there and say it wears off because, we will always be fans. I mean, we're a fan podcast, but sort of this like, I tease about this being the apex of your career, being on this show. If as a fan, being able to cover the Buccaneers from the inside with credentials and being in the media room is an idea of your apex, you get there and you're like, okay, like this isn't exactly what I thought it was gonna be, but it's still really fun. A great dream, something you obviously want to continue. Just to be able to get the information to the people. So that was talk about long-winded answer. I don't even know where I started on that one.
You're right. You have a great point though, Ren, because like me, I work for the radio station, so in a lot of ways you have to be unbiased, but I've been doing a podcast for the Lightning for the last 4 years. I'm on their pre and post game show. I filled in with the Rays. So it's hard not to have a little bit of a more, biased in their favor. But I think for all the listeners, as long as you call them out when they're not playing well, I think you're okay. It's one of those things is when you're kind of trying to paint lipstick on a game, when a guy's messing up, like when Brady makes throws. Listen, after the game the other night, I said, listen, first, you can blame the running backs, you can blame the play call, and you can blame the offensive line, all you want. But Tom Brady made some bad throws. And as long as I can go on the air and call out Tom Brady and being honest, it's not personal, I think that's when people go, hey, we're on board with you. But the other thing, too, is the relationship, guys. You talk about it like being in the room, like being on here with you guys and, being around some guys. You guys were talking about Fred Goodall in your top 10 media thing. Fred Goodall is one of the best people I've ever met. And he has shown me that he covers sports unlike anybody else in Tampa Bay. Fred, I've been working with him 6 years now. I think Fred has asked maybe 2 questions out of all the times that I've known Fred and all the scrums, baseball, hockey, football, and USF. Fred's one of those guys that he can be on the periphery and go, I'm going to take the question from a Joey Knight or a Rick Stroud or Mark Topkin and then formulate a story good enough for the Associated Press. Yeah. And he's the only guy that keeps my man Ira Kaufman in check, which is awesome because Ira's the ruler of the roost, and then here comes Fred Goodall and kind of smack him back down the side. So the relationships that you have with the guys, and even with with people with podcasts like yourself, man, you guys are crushing this. There's so many good people that do what we do that that's a huge part of it. A lot of people don't even talk about.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It really definitely becomes about the relationships. And Ren and I have been fortunate enough to develop a relationship with several of the people there in the media room. And
good ones too.
And I'm not just talking like the PR staff. Like, I mean, people will be like you guys. And even with getting to have you on the show and say make a new friend.
Yeah, man.
As we go through that. So
we'll see.
Show's not over yet.
Yeah,
Show's not over
exactly.
yet.
Right. We'll see.
I'm slow to trust.
We'll see. We'll see if Jay stays on Ren's top 10 list by the end of the episode.
Right. Oh, by the way, this is an audition.
This is what this is what this is really about.
Right. Ren, Ren's auditioning for something.
My top 10 list.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, guys, with that, why don't we actually dive into our topic and our content for today? We'll start right at the top of the list. We'll start with roster moves. Buccaneers really didn't have much in the way of the roster moves. The only thing they did was they reverted Kenyon Barner back down to the practice squad after his elevation from last week so that he could come and do something that, quite frankly, somebody else on the team really could have. Like, I don't understand why they elevated him to have him do what he did when we could very well do that with someone else.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a guy like Kenyon Barner, he's not going to get any reps at the running back position. I mean, hello,
Cutter's gone.
Hello, Shady McCoy, are you there? So pretty much it's all in the return game. And, one of the things we always try to look at the stats when it comes to the return game. All right, what's the gross? What's the net? I think a lot of times, and we saw that with, I can't remember the other guy's name that they brought. Oh, TJ Logan, when Bruce Arians brought TJ Logan in. It's just, when you're looking at a return guy, you're either getting a really young guy that's got some speed that can bust you one, or you get a veteran guy that, all right, he's not going to take the ball out of the end zone when it's a deep kick or things like that. So it's more of a trust factor more than anything. You see this a lot from around the league when it's just like, why is this kick returner going on and off the squad a lot? So it's weird because it's our guy, but it happens a lot around the league.
Yeah, I'm ready for the Buccaneers to have somebody back there. It's actually a weapon.
Yeah.
But, when you, I guess also a way to look at it is when you have a team that's loaded with stars such as the Buccaneers, the most important thing might be just just catch the ball and don't run it out 8 yards deep just because you're feeling it tonight. So.
You see that punt. Excuse me. Sorry. You see that in the punt return, I think, more than even kick return, because now if you're going to return it, it's either the ball's going to go way out of the end zone or you're going to be able to, all right, let's see what you got. But the punt return, I think you see that a lot more now. I know USF was doing that with KJ Sales. It was like, maybe you're not breaking a touchdown here, but at least just catch the ball, secure it, and make sure that we're getting the ball on offense without any craziness and losing yards.
Yeah. Where do you fall on that? Because we just did a pod yesterday that was pretty anti-Thanksgiving. It was kind of like, are the Bucs trending down? And it was like Brady's deep ball and why the love for Fournette, and Devin White can't cover, and the corner and Sean Murphy Bunting and Jamel Dean are trending down. And
basically what you talked about a minute ago, as long as you can call out the team, like that's our last episode.
That's all we did.
Last episode. That was the entire show. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just time. Yeah. So, we also called out Keith Armstrong. I mean, Brent said he should be fired. I'm not exactly on that bus. I called for his job, and I stand by it. The special teams have been terrible this year. So, find a guy or don't find a guy. And I would really, at this point, just like to see that roster spot go to Keyshawn Vaughn. Because I think it's been proven that Rojo is a way better running back than Fournette. And now Fournette has proven that he can't catch. And as funny as it may seem, Rojo may actually be able to have better hands than Fournette at this point. So having a guy just to come back to fair catch some balls and wave his hands as the ball soars over his head, you can find somebody to do that and open that spot for somebody like Keyshawn Vaughn, because that one touchdown pass he got from Tom Brady early in the season, that was not an easy catch, and it came very natural to him. And not only that, he turned up the field, put his foot in the ground right before the sideline, and had enough power to get inside the pylon, and then he had a fumble and had one bounce off his face. So, I mean, rookies. But yeah, that's what I got to say about that roster move.
Yeah, and I think when you look, you have the Cyril Grayson, you've kind of seen him, and he's dealt with the whole COVID issue as well. Listen, if it was as simple as putting Vaughn back there in favor of Barner, I think that decision would have already been done. But apparently it seems like, grooming him for a running back position, not just obviously this year, but going forward. And some people are saying, why isn't Barner in there? Why isn't a guy like Keyshawn Vaughn in there? And yeah, I mean, pass catching ability, may he be the best guy in that running back stable? Probably. But there's not
a high bar.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot more that goes into it that a lot of people don't look at. What happens if he lines up on the wrong side, or if he misses a blitz and then Brady gets lit up, man? And then people are going to go, well, why was Keyshawn Vaughn in there? Well, you haven't had that necessarily with Rojo or whether, Fournette or LaShawn McCoy. So you kind of look at, hey, what can he do? But what can he do is probably the reason why he's not in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I mean, he did get blown up on one pass protection. He just looked like he just wasn't ready for it. One of the games he was in there, and I'm not necessarily saying that Vaughn should be the guy that's doing returns. I'm just saying that whoever's like, find somebody, like have J-Watt do it, like find somebody so that roster spot is open so Vaughn can start to get some touches, because you're not going to learn anything in practice. And I think it's the one thing the offense is missing besides continuity and sort of a grab bag type of play calling style and having terrible schemes coming out of the gate, 3 of the past 4 weeks. Besides all that, they need someone to catch the ball in the flat. And, let's see what Vaughn can do. So I'm not, stumping for, Keyshawn Vaughn or bust, like free Vaughn. But, it's just like I said, like if you're not going to do anything in the return game and not be aggressive with it, then it doesn't matter who's back there. And then you just open a spot for somebody who personally, I think, could help the team, especially in the playoffs.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, with that's literally the only roster move that's happened.
Yay!
Is a guy on the practice squad who stayed on the practice squad, oddly. Didn't even get cut and had to come back. Like he just got pushed back down. So we have that. Also, for the record, we haven't actually done this in a few weeks, but I found it out there. The Buccaneers this week have protected Barner, John Malcon, the guard, which turns out they may need him. Greg Joseph, the kicker, who has been protected every single week, and Jeremiah Ledbetter over on the defensive line. Those are the 4 protected this week. Just to make sure we cover that. All right, let's move on to some headlines. Let's talk about some different things that have happened around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's talk about some fun stuff first. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Rondé Barber and John Lynch have been named finalists for the NFL Hall of Fame. This is John Lynch, I think, his 27th time in the finalist room.
28th.
28th.
28th. There you go.
28th. In a row.
There you go.
So where do you fall on this, Jay? I'm gonna put you on the spot here. You talked a little about Fred Goodall and Ira. If Ira doesn't get John in this year, is it time for him to pass the torch?
Ooh.
Being in the room, a Hall of Fame speech giver and Hall of Fame voter to represent this area, because let's call a spade here. The only reason I was working at all was to keep that Hall of Fame vote. The word on the street is he went to the Times. Times said no. I think the Times said no because they were expecting to get the Hall of Fame vote, so they give it to their newspaper. But I hooked up with Joe Bucs fan. Now he's got a spot. He used to brag and talk about, I got him Brooks, I got him Sapp. Any one of us could have done that. You just stand up, go hi, Warren Sapp, and sit back down, and he gets in. Same thing with Brooks. Is it time for, if Ira can't pull it off this year for 47? Is it time? Do we have to start a grassroots campaign here?
Well, I think if you use that same argument for, Ira didn't really have to do much for guys like Sapp and Brooks, you also have to kind of look at the other half of, is it really Ira's problem that Rondé and John Lynch aren't getting in? I mean, I've sat in that press box and seen every single big-time writer, former players, come up to Ira and show him a lot of love. He's a guy that has a lot of love and a lot of respect, not just in Tampa Bay, not just in in this division, in the entire NFL. He told me, he's on a committee now with like Bill Belichick and guys like that. So I don't put this blame on Ira, and this is one of those things where he's giving me the rundown of, hey, this is what I've talked about in the years past. Listen, this keeps him up. This is not one of those things where Ira's like, I don't really, he really cares about this, and he does a lot of research.
When John doesn't make it, he disappears off Twitter for like 2 days.
He's not, he does his research. Every single year, Ira brings something new to the table, some new arguments for Barber, for Lynch, the impact that they have. I know him and I talked about last year about maybe in some people's minds, not saying if it's right or wrong, but the success that John Lynch has as an executive, maybe that rubs off on some people in a positive way. Is that right or wrong? We're not talking about that aspect of it, but it's just he's busting his butt. Listen, there is not one guy, and I can't emphasize this enough. There is not one guy that can go into a room and better explain what Rondé Barber and John Lynch meant to this team, meant to this community than Ira Kaufman. If somebody else goes in there, guys, and they don't have that same cachet, doesn't have that same information, it's going to be a losing battle. So I know a lot of people want to say that it's an Ira thing and he's not doing enough. Trust me, this guy wants them in there. He brings new information to the table every year. It's just they're in a tough spot. Rondé's in kind of that weird thing because I just heard this conversation with some former NFL players the other night. One thing that hurts Rondé is that he always played with a better cover corner on his team, whether it's Brian Kelly or Aqib Talib. Whether you agree or disagree with that, that's what's going through the mind of certain people. John Lynch, hey, hell of a safety. I mean, he's an unbelievable player. But then you compare him to the guys the last couple of years, a lot of it is timing, too. It's like, if I give you Lynch, Ed Reed, and Troy Polamalu, a lot of people are going to have John Lynch coming in at number 3, and we know how hard it is for secondary guys to make it into the Hall of Fame as is. I mean, look at the numbers. There's just not as many guys there. So I think a lot of it is circumstance, not so much of like what Ira can do or things like that. It's going to be a numbers game, guys, and just hopefully, I mean, we can do all that we can, but whatever the decision is made behind closed doors, unfortunately, we just kind of have to live with the results for now.
Let me throw 2 quick thoughts at you and see how they stick to you.
Sure.
One, is John Lynch being an active general manager in the NFL hurting his vote? Like, do people look at that and go, well, he's still really active in the NFL right now, so he's going to be up for this later because he'll have, he'll have Tampa, he'll have his time in Denver, and he's going to have whatever he's going to get out of San Francisco, and we'll look at that then. Do you think that's hurting him as in the minds of the voters right now?
No, if anything, I think it helps. I think because he is on top of mind, and it goes, when you have a Super Bowl run like he did last year, and people go, and you saw this a couple of years ago when the Broncos won the Super Bowl. What did you see every game? You saw John Elway on the sideline. So, if there's even a young person or a young fan going, Daddy, who's that guy? Well, let me tell you about John Elway. That only thing, when you're on top of mind, when you're in the conversation, good or bad, that helps, man. That helps John Lynch's case, in my opinion. I mean, how much? It may not be a lot, but for people to wonder, like, hey, who's this guy putting the Niners together? Those guys making the decisions know who the heck John Lynch is. But I don't think it can hurt. In my opinion, it can only help.
Interesting. The other thing, and I guess I'm not necessarily going to ask you to comment on this as much as I'm just going to make an observation. If Ren's right, when Ira does finally step down from that vote and have his last ride off into the sunset, presumably it goes to Tampa Bay, and presumably it'll be Rick Stroud. And when you talk about a guy that's got a lot of gravitas, a lot of love and national respect, I've never been in that room, but I imagine Rick also carries quite a bit of that same respect. However, I've met Ira, I've seen Ira, I've met Rick, I've seen Rick. The passion the 2 men will approach, I think the delivery of this is going to be significantly different. Like Ira's going to get in and he's really going to bring out an impassioned speech. Like Stroud's going to get it and he's going to give a good one, but his will be just down the line, like by the numbers. I think Ira's speech will be a lot more passionate, I think is my best word for that. As we move into that.
What I got out of that conversation is Jay thinks John Lynch isn't good enough to get into the Hall of Fame.
I don't know if I would say that. I do think he's a borderline Hall of Famer for sure. But kind of going back to what Ira and Rick Stroud, I know both of the guys really well. I'm pretty sure that Rick Stroud helps out with the Hall of Fame right now. I don't know if he technically has.
He was in the room,
but he's been in the room. Yeah, I think he's an alternate, if I'm not mistaken. So,
which interesting enough, Joe Bucs fan did not pick when Ira missed a year ago. They picked somebody else, which is, if you know, it's not surprising.
Yeah. Both those guys different. I mean, obviously, Ira, Jay Bird, come over here, Jay Bird. I got to bend your ear on something. I'm like, all right, thanks. And then Stroud, listen, Rick Stroud is one of those guys. If you don't know him, he's very detailed, very down the line. But if you know Rick Stroud, he is one of the funniest, wittiest, cunning, just the things that he says. Hey, Jay, you see that pass? And he was a college baseball player, so he's always bugging me about baseball too.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, listen, both guys highly respected around the league. And I know we get that with the Rays and the Lightning sometimes, where people kind of look down their noses at Tampa Bay sports. I don't get that same feeling when other teams come here and they talk to two guys like that have been around a long time. Roy Cummings was another guy. I mean, those three guys are around a long time. They've seen and they've been around people in different markets. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're blessed to have guys like that represent not just our team, but our community in such a positive way.
There you go. Well, speaking
The
of that,
spin master.
there you go. Speaking of Rick Stroud, a report that Rick Stroud wrote up earlier this week, he was actually quoting something that Byron Leftwich had said in one of his press conferences, talking about Scotty Miller. Said that Scotty Miller's production hasn't gone down because AB has come to Tampa. Scotty Miller's production has been down because he's not been healthy. In fact, the words Byron Leftwich used in his press conference was, for a few weeks, he was very unhealthy, or very not healthy, I think is actually the exact quote. For a few weeks. And that's why Miller has not been getting his snaps. It's not been because of AB. However, I can tell you guys, we track the injury report every single week here at the Pewtercast, much to some people's chagrin, I'm sure. But Scotty Miller's not been on the injury report. But he's been injured.
Weeks.
Yeah, certainly not for a few weeks. He's not on this week's either. How much do we buy into that idea that he's been injured? And what kind of injury or do we think we're talking about here?
Well, isn't that a violation, though, of the CBA by not reporting injuries? Like,
yes,
right?
You're supposed to do that, so you're kind of throwing yourself under the bus a little bit there. I'm surprised that we haven't heard anything from the NFL based on the organization. I mean, that's pretty much.
Or he's just flat out lying.
Or that. I mean, just listen. You bring in a guy like Antonio Brown into this team, everybody else's targets are automatically going to go down just by mathematics. Whether he gets one ball or 30 balls, it doesn't matter. Your numbers are just going to clearly go down. And this is one of the more talented receivers that we've seen in the last 20 or 30 years. I mean, you just look at Antonio Brown, take the off the field stuff out of it. And I've, said what my piece on that. But on the field, the way the guy that runs routes, his hands, I mean, this guy really does. He gives you just that facet of an offense where it's just mind-blowing some of the things he does. But you add that to a situation where you already have Mike Evans, you already have Chris Godwin, and then you have two young guys, in my opinion, that were burgeoning to maybe not be stars, but to be healthy contributors in Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson. I mean, those, in my opinion, when you bring a guy like Antonio Brown in, people were worried about is going to hurt Chris Godwin, is going to hurt Mike Evans. Guys, the two guys that's going to hurt more than anybody is Tyler Johnson and also Scotty Miller. And a lot of fantasy football fans know this is like when you get receivers, it's not about going and drafting guys in your fantasy team that get, catches or yards. It's about targets because that's what they're telling you. That's what their game plan is going to be around. You have a guy like Scotty Miller who he'll get targeted 5 one week, maybe 1. Now it's even going to be more kind of herky-jerky because you have a guy like Antonio Brown in there. So I'm with you guys, man. This sounds like some kind of it sounds a little fugazi to me. I don't think that he's real banged up. If it is, they're doing something that they probably shouldn't be doing. I just think his targets are going down because you have a guy like AB there.
I will say this just for the record on that note, because I've often had the same question. I can remember a couple of years ago when I think it was 2 years ago, Ren, you probably remember exactly. Cam Brate. Cam Brate goes through and it just had a real down year. Really down year. And then we get to the end of the season and it's like, oh yeah, Cam Brate had surgery. He played injured the entire year and never complained about it. And you're like, wait a minute. What do you mean he played injured the whole year? He was not on the injury report at all for the whole year. And I feel like we've seen that a handful of times where players will be injured, but they're not actually on the injury report. So I don't know where that rule is with the CBA and what all that has to work around, but it does seem real funny to me. Ren, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that Scotty, with Brady struggling with the deep ball, the second half of the season so far, that, you start to point fingers. And the first thing you're going to look at is like, well, who do you have the best connection with the deep ball? And it was Scotty Miller. And now that Scotty's not getting touches and the deep ball is not connecting, it's like, well, it's kind of like me with Fournette, like just putting Keyshawn Vaughn, problem solved. People are like, well, just throw the ball to Scotty Miller, problem solved. And he's not getting on the field and he's not getting reps and he's not getting targets. So, that just kind of frustrates people. But with, Leftwich, instead of just saying what Jay said, like, look, AB's here. Like, what do you want me to do? But he went to Scotty Miller. He's barely been able to walk for the past 6 weeks, and people are like, huh, like what?
Right.
Like, but if you watch all the press conferences and follow any NFL team closely enough, there's going to be 3, 4, 5 times a year where one of the coaches say something and they're just lying to you, and it's their job. It's like instead of saying it's none of your business. There you go.
Here was a great example.
Yeah.
When they put up the 4, he knew what down it was.
Did he?
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what I do.
Come on,
that's
guys.
every time I throw an incomplete pass to end the game, I always I'm like, you sure? Like, no.
Let me flip the script on you two guys and ask you guys a question, because this is something that I deal with on a weekly basis now. Is like, I've seen it from the Lightning from 2 years ago to this past year, of how, like, when they say stuff, it was like, okay, we're buying it. We weren't buying it 2 years ago. I get that little bit of that here with the Buccaneers, where like that, it's just like, all right, bro, we know he didn't know it down. If they just go, yeah, he screwed up, whatever, just move on. People just move on after a while.
Yeah.
Now it's a thing. The Scotty Miller situation, the same thing. It was like, if you just say, hey, man, yeah, with Antonio Brown in here, there's not as many balls to go around. He's going to keep working hard and keep doing his thing, and he'll be ready when his number's called. That's it. It ends. Yeah. People move on. But the reason the Bucs this year, for some reason, seem at times to be making things harder on themselves than they need to be. Do you guys agree with that?
100%. And I think it's because they don't understand how social media works, where every fan now has a voice.
Yeah.
And like, I can talk to you, and I've never met you in real life, and I could talk to Brent, who lives in Jacksonville, and I can talk to Buck fans in North Dakota, and I can tag people at the Buccaneers, and I can start hashtags and all. And so and also press conferences, even just a handful of years ago, they weren't like, you couldn't watch them. Yeah, you couldn't watch them online, So it was all the stuff you were just getting was from, either the newspaper or Twitter recently. And they just don't like, that's the way it used to be able to be done, where you could just kind of pass it off. And this is my feeling, of course. And, the media just reports it as it is. But now more and more with all these 24-hour sports shows, and you have to have programming. Yeah. And you have to fill it up. So now all these shows are opinion based. So you watch every single press conference and you pick apart everything they say, because, you got a half-hour show and you can do a 10-minute segment on, because we just did about Scotty Miller. Like, there you go. Yep. So that's why I think they don't do that, because they're not that they haven't caught up to the idea, or it hasn't registered in their head, or even realized that they're doing it, because that's the way it's always been.
Right. Well, guys, speaking of coaches BS, or is it right on? Todd Bowles this week, speaking on Sean Murphy-Bunting in his play, said Sean Murphy-Bunting started off with a couple of good games, and then he's been in a lull where he's just been thinking about it too much. But he's started to come out of it in these last couple of games, and he's been playing really well. BS, or no, he's got a point there.
I don't know if Todd Bowles is watching the same games we've been watching the last couple of weeks. And he's this is another situation where I'm not going to pretend to know more football than Todd Bowles. But if you're looking at a couple of offenses that like to get the ball out of their hands quickly, somebody, for the love of God, tell me why they keep playing off these receivers. I don't. It's mind-boggling. And then there's other NFL players that go on Twitter like, why are they playing so much zone? Why do they play off these receivers? New Orleans with Taysom Hill is not going to push the ball down the field as much. That Jared Goff wants a 3-step drop, get it out of his hands quickly, and get it to Goff and Woods and Reynolds and those guys. It's a little bit of one of those things where it's just like, it makes you think, like, am I watching the same thing as with a defensive coordinator of a National Football League team? What am I missing here? So I'm with you. It's, you kind of go back and you're like, all right, I got to watch the game again. I got to watch the tape. And I've done that the last couple of weeks, kind of go back. And it's just, again, it seems like some of these plays, offensively or defensively, are doomed from the start. You look at how they're set up before the ball is snapped, and it really makes you scratch your head. And it's just, does it get better? You hope that they get better. You saw the defense get better last year. So hopefully those adjustments offensively and defensively, take shape. And then this team kind of, starts hitting and peaking as they head towards the playoffs. But yeah, I'm with you. I heard that and I was like, oh, hey.
Yeah, you should go back and listen to our last podcast because that was the like Todd Bowles in love with the zone that went on for a while between Brent and I.
That was a 15-minute segment right there by itself.
Todd Bowles in his soft zone and like why do you have to wait till halftime for adjustments? I mean, you're only in there 7 minutes. Once you punt the ball in the anyway. Long story short, Sean Murphy-Bunting has 0. That's a little unfair to say, but he lacks awareness in zone. And it has been more and more evident. It just seems to coincide when he pulled his groin and he's come back.
Yeah.
I will say that he had a better game covering last week, but it was probably the worst I've seen the entire defense tackle. Lots of hidden yards in that Rams game where they'd catch it for 5 yards and make the first guy miss a little and end up with 7. So now we're at 2nd and 3 instead of like 2nd and 6. And that happened continually happened in the first half, besides, Reynolds getting loose at the end of the half and Cup getting loose a couple of times in the game. They probably gave up, probably 50, 60 yards and adjusted at 2, 3, 4 yards at a time, all first half. And it was frustrating to watch. So I want to believe Todd Bowles on this one. But one game it's kind of like the Donovan Smith syndrome, It's like he didn't have a terrible game. Well, then he must have had a good game.
Yeah,
well, no. So, again, I'm not ready, to say that Todd Bowles is peeing on my head and tell me it's raining on the Sean Murphy-Bunting thing, but I'm going to need to see a little bit more. I need to talk to their defensive back coach, because when he came out like 8 weeks ago and said the problem why Edwards can't get all the fields is he can't tackle. It's like, that's the guy I want in a press conference.
I want him. But it changes. It changes though, guys. Let me tell you that the change from Dirk Cutter as offensive coordinator and head coach was like a 2 different person, 2 different people. Like I remember offensive coordinator out there. I was like, he looks like he had some whiskey and scotch and with a cigar. I'm like, I could listen to this guy speak all day. And then head coach Dirk Cutter walked in the room. I was like, who is that guy? Is that the same guy? So the more responsibility you get, the less you say.
I got to tell you,
true.
Well, when in one of the training camps that Ren was there, as Ren goes into the scrum with Dirk Cutter, and like Ren's waiting real politely. He's waiting. We had the credential and everything, and he's waiting. And finally, like Ren pops up, and like Dirk Cutter like looks over and just stares at Ren, like. Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
Where did you come from? Like,
brother.
Not even looking like, wait, what was your question? Because I'm distracted by your turtleneck right now.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
It was. I wear this outside when it's hot too.
96 degrees.
Yeah. Well, it's active wear. It's sportswear. It's sportswear.
Smart man.
Yeah. That was, and Brent messed up the story a little bit. It was actually Mike Smith, and I did get the question out. And basically, I asked him. I go, last year, Jay Hayes was allowed to call the defensive line plays. And are you going to, basically extend that same courtesy to Buckner? And Mike Smith looked at me and looked down at my credential and read it and looked back up at me and then just did coaches speak. Well, every game plan, he never answered the question, like game plan, and we're all going to be involved in it and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, he was, he's like, who the hell is this guy? And I'm like, sorry.
I'm just trying to do. It was funnier when it was or when it was Dirk Cutter in there, not Mike Smith. But whatever. All right. Well, speaking of coaches, let's round this out. Bruce Arians this week comes out, and this is the quote that I read out there. Says it's just a matter of each and every week if the quarterback plays well or not. Much has been made about BA putting stuff on Brady. And the rumors are flying from national news all the way down that there is strife between BA and TB. Tom Brady is not liking his time here with Bruce Arians, and there's issues going on. Jay, you're in the building, or at least around the building. I guess you're not in the building this year, but you're
drove
around.
By it.
I drove by.
What do you make of the whole rumors that are flying of there's issues between BA and Tom Brady, and really just even BA's statement of kind of throwing his guy under the bus there?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that in the last couple of years since BA's been here, whether it was Gerald McCoy or Vernon Hargraves. Like, he's not afraid to kind of call guys out. I know it's a little weird that you do it without mentioning his name, but Tom knows the deal. I mean, listen, Tom Brady has been playing under Bill Belichick forever. We think something in the media is going to bother that guy. Bill Belichick's probably said 10,000 things worse than that to Tom Brady. This, to me, is much ado about nothing. These are grown-ass men. These are guys that both at the end of their careers, they're just trying to win a Super Bowl. You think Tom Brady cares about his feelings on what the coach says? He doesn't care about that. Tom Brady said the least out of anybody that has done any press conferences for the Bucs this year. It's just one of those kind of lightning rod topics people want to jump on, just kind of like we were just talking about, guys. I don't see that it being a big deal. Both those guys are only going to be here for a couple of years anyway. This isn't one of those things where we got to get along because we plan on being here for the next 5-10 years. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's, again, much ado about nothing. When things aren't going well, people are going to try to divvy you up and they're going to try to separate you. But yeah, I mean, they're struggling. It shows that they didn't have a preseason. It's not easy to incorporate a guy like Antonio Brown that really could be a focal point of your offense, and especially when you have two other guys that a lot of people consider ones in this league. So yeah, and you have a bunch of running backs that have trouble catching the ball out of the backfield, which we know is a staple of a Tom Brady offense. So there's a lot of things that are going on here that aren't working out for this Buccaneer offense, but hey, still got a pretty darn good record. And I don't see that it's that big of a deal now.
Yeah, the Bucs have 4 losses. BA's done this 3 times. The only thing we didn't do was after the Chicago game, and this is the 3rd time the talking heads, the national pundits, have come out and said, BA, you can't treat Tom Brady like this. 3rd time it's happened.
Can't do it to Tommy.
Can't do it, Tommy.
Don't treat Tommy like that.
Tommy doesn't take that kind of pressure. Like, you don't talk to Tommy like that.
Tommy. We have people from New England calling into the radio show all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, why? Like, Cam Newton, man. You worry about your NBA team, man. You just got rid of Gordon Hayward, or your baseball team still sucks. Get out of here, man. Leave us alone.
I got to tell you, one of my favorite things that I saw, I was at the game this past week and I was down in the team store, and there's always that one guy who's wearing a Tom Brady jersey.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no matter what game you're going to, it doesn't matter if the New England's playing or not. Like, there was always going to be that one person that you would see wearing a Tom Brady jersey. Well, I saw that guy and he was wearing a New England Patriots Tom Brady jersey.
Oh.
But in his hand, he had a Tampa Bay Buccaneers Tom Brady jersey. And I took a photo and I went, there's always that one guy, but this guy's making smart choices today.
Smart. Come aboard the Buccaneers train.
There you go. I like it. All right. Well, let's move on to a little bit of sad news, actually, before we wrap this up on a happy note. AQ Shipley went out really late in the game with what they originally thought was a neck stinger injury he's had before. But turns out they went in and did an MRI, and this is a career-ending injury. Now, nobody has officially said that he's done. They just keep saying it looks like it's potentially a career-ending injury. But apparently BA also went on to say, yeah, he's going on IR, and I think they did put him on IR. He's going on IR, and he starts his coaching career right now in Tampa Bay. Coach AQ getting started like right now.
Coach Ship.
Nobody has actually said what the injury actually is. I think they said there was a cervical thing and there was something, but we don't know what it is. Jay, do you have any extra information on what this injury is? And, I mean, my God, you go from a neck stinger to being out of the league to being a coach all in a 24-hour period, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't have any inside information on what the injury is, but from what I've heard, ever since that he was brought into Tampa Bay, that he's just a guy that BA and his whole coaching staff and all of his family, like I saw his Bruce's son tweet something out, and this really hurt them. It really hurt them to make this call, but it was just one of those things where it's like quality of life, man. You're 34 years old, you have kids, and for them to give him that kind of affirmation, like, hey, man, you still got a job here, you still got a place here, and guys, we know professional sports can be pretty damn brutal, and it's just like, hey, thanks for helping us. Deuces, we're out of here. Who the hell are you? We don't know you. It wasn't like that. And for the great Alan Quay Shipley, that's his name. That's what the AQ stands for. I looked it up. Alan Quay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it hurts him, but I'm sure it takes a little bit of solace knowing that that's part of the reason why he came here. I wouldn't be surprised if going to Tampa Bay, him and Bruce had this conversation of, hey, this year, I know you probably don't have many years left, but why don't you stay on and coach with me, for the next guy? I wouldn't be surprised if that conversation already happened.
Yeah, BA kind of alluded to it. He said that he had his MRI. He called it cervical, or did he call it cervical? I don't think that's right though. Anyway, I don't know. Big words, more than one syllable. I don't know what I'm talking about. And basically said that he'll have a job here, and we'll get him into this and see if he likes doing this coaching lifestyle. So it's sad, but let's talk about really, what it could mean as we sort of a little bit with Shipley not going. That means Jensen's got to play center, and then if Allie doesn't go, that means Stinney's got to play guard. So even though the Chiefs defense isn't sort of a top 10, top 5, top whatever in the league, but they got some guys that can rush the passer. So this is a big deal for this Chiefs game coming up with Shipley not being able to go, because with the move of Jensen to guard and Shipley at center, everyone's kind of like, well, I don't really know how it's going to work out. And they have done more than an admirable job, because they haven't, there hasn't been any problems in the middle of that offensive line, even with, Marpet gone.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing is, like, people are assuming that Allie's still going to be able to come back after missing the last couple of games. Still not 100% guaranteed on that.
No.
From what I actually checked into that earlier today before I came on with you guys. From what I'm hearing, this is the most positive. I know it kind of sounds coach speaking with the media is the most positive, but that really is the most positive that they've been the last couple of weeks on whether he's going to be available for this game. So if that does, if he's able to be in there, that's good. But also Donovan Smith, man, we're dealing with that injury. That's going to be a game time call too. So, do you see the Stinnies of the world? Do you want to see guys like that? But man, luckily, the push up front is going to come from the inside. You look at Alex Cappa. If you have Cappa and Jensen working against Chris Jones, to me, that's kind of the big thing you got to stop there. But to me, I really think that there's some issues for Kansas City in the secondary, in that back seven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the Buccaneers, all right, let's say, we're not be able to hold it. We might see an old school Tom Brady performance here. A lot of short throws, a lot of checkdowns. I know that's hasn't been a recipe for success with the propensity for the drops, but I think you look at some of these things that they can do, making those short throws. I think they'll be in good shape and kind of be able to deal with an O-line that could be a little banged up.
Well, with that, and I definitely want to jump into that injury report because we're already stretching on that, but I got one more thing I want to talk about. And you just mentioned the guy's name who is the topic of this. We'll end this on a positive note for the headline section. Everybody knows right now Pro Bowl voting is happening. And surprise, surprise, surprise. If you go look it up right now, leading in the Pro Bowl vote for the position of guard is none other, not Ali Marpet, but is Alex freaking Cappa.
How about it?
Yeah,
What in
not
the
Quentin Nelson?
Not Quentin Nelson. Not Ali Marpet. Alex Cappa is leading as a Pro Bowl guard in the vote.
I love it, man. It's funny. Last year, I went to him I went to one of the PR guys. Hey, can I interview Cappa? And they're like, yeah.
Why?
Hell yeah, bro. Well, I try to. I don't want to be in the same groups as everybody else. You know what I mean?
No, I was being the PR guy.
No, I no. Oh, yeah, he was excited though. He was like, "Yeah, sure, man." Not a lot of people talk to him, and he was really excited. And Cappa was just like, "Yeah, man." I think for him, still, it's surreal for him to kind of look around and go, "Oh my God, I'm on the same team as Tom Brady," and "Oh my God, that's Jason Pierre. Oh, that's Mike Evans." Like he still kind of has that deer in the headlights, not for his playing, but he's just a real aloof guy, real kind of stays to himself. But have you guys talked about him much this year on the Pewtercast of the job that he's done? It's almost one of those things in the offensive line where you don't mention him. Usually it means he's doing a pretty darn good job.
I think that's what we've usually said from week to week. Nothing really much about Alex Cappa. That means he did his job. Like that's been about it for like a couple of times, like that one play he got blown up, but outside of that, he's fine. Like,
hold on guys. I'll switch here.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Here's my theory on why Cappa is leading candidate guard for the Pro Bowl. One, it goes by alphabetical order, so he's on the first page. Two, people don't know. They know that Ali Marpet's good, but they don't know his name's Marpet, and they see guard and they see Cappa, and they vote for him because he's on the first page. Or
top line of the first page too.
Or because it goes by alphabetical order, or
Yeah.
it's because that Cappa has his friends and family and agents stuffing the ballot box, which I'm all for. So those are my reasons why I think Cappa is leading it. And also, Devin White is leading his position, which is cool. Can't cover. But ahead of Lante David, like, come on now.
It's a weird year. It is a weird year. So congratulations to Alex Cappa. I think that is officially going to take our headline that shouldn't have been a headline, because why should Alex Cappa actually be the guy winning? But congratulations to Alex. And I don't know, Jay, you've given me an idea for a potential future guest of the Tampa Bay Buccaneer players here on the Pewtercast. I don't know. We'll see.
There you go, man.
We'll see. Well, guys, I noticed as we kind of turn toward, let's make this turn and really focus on this upcoming game that we have here against the Chiefs coming up this Sunday. We've already started talking about the injury report. Ali Marpet is still questionable, although he was full participation all week, which is good, but he's still in the concussion protocol. Donovan Smith injured his ankle very first play of the game last week, did not participate all week long. I don't know that is an indication he's not going to play. He's listed as questionable. Questionable, I will remind people, means likely to play. But he's listed as questionable, but they did mention, Jay, you mentioned a second ago, game time decision. Out for this game, AQ Shipley, we also covered that. Tanner Hudson is out, death in the family. His condolences to the Hudson family. But Jamel Dean is also out with a concussion, did not participate all week long. Other than that, we're looking pretty good. It really would be Jamel Dean.
Other than the left side of our offensive line, our starting corner.
It'd be Jamel Dean. And then Ali, I'm kind of going off the assumption that Ali and Donovan are both going to go.
I think so too.
I'm so really it's just Jamel
Donnie
Dean.
for sure, as they call him in the building.
Yeah. Donnie.
Yeah.
Donnie boy.
Do they really call him that?
Yeah.
Wow. But outside of that, I mean, Tampa Bay's looking really, like I said, I'm assuming that those two guys are going to go. So Tampa Bay's looking fairly healthy. I'll say this though, looking at the injury report, Tampa Bay is not looking nearly as healthy as the Kansas City Chiefs, who have a lot of people on their injury report, but every single one of them are listed at full participation across the board this week, and nobody is out. The defending Super Bowl champs, with much of their roster still intact this year, is coming in fully healthy to Tampa Bay.
It's going to be a hell of a matchup between two dynamic offense, and I think it's kind of like what defense is going to be able to. You're not going to stop either one of these offense. You would think you're just going to try to contain him. I say that, but then New Orleans is laughing in the background over there. But you look at certain matchups with certain position matchups, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but. Yeah, I mean, hey, there's no excuse for Kansas City going into this game. And I think this is kind of one of those things that Tampa Bay wants. Like, hey, everybody's kind of counting us out now. People think that we're frauds. People don't think that we're part of the NFC or NFL elite. It's a nice statement game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the tunes, they will be a changing on Monday if the Buccaneers come out on top of this game. It's going to be a tough battle because they have so much speed. Their team is predicated on speed on both sides of the ball. But if the Buccaneers can put up a good showing and come out on top, they're going to put the NFL on notice again, just like they did a couple of weeks ago when they put the beats to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, Jay hit the nail on the head there. We talked a little bit about what could happen with the offensive line with Shipley out and Ali maybe coming back, and maybe Stinney's going to have to play. And for some reason, I've been racking my brain for the past 2 or 3 minutes about who backs up Donovan. I always want to say West, but it's not. Who's the guy?
Hey,
no, it's not Haig.
Wells
there. West Wells. I had two, almost there. So like having a left side of the offensive line be Stinney and Wells doesn't look great. Hopefully, before the season or even 5-6 weeks into the season, I would be fully have the full confidence that they come up with an offensive game plan that would work around that. Over these last few weeks, I'm not so sure. But with Jamel Dean going down, who hasn't been nearly as good as the starters coming off the bench, it's almost night and day, and Sean Murphy-Bunting not moving to the outside, which is a little surprising. And apparently someone found Cockrell's body down there on the 15-yard line from the Panthers game, because he made a play against the Rams, and he will be, he rose from the dead, and it looks like he'll be starting against the Chiefs. So and with the Chiefs having no one injured, like, okay, of course, like, of course no one's injured. Why would they be? It's only week 13.
Yeah, did Sammy Watkins sneeze, or you know what I mean? And Tyreek Hill, how you feeling, man? You got a little bum wrist or something like that?
Yeah, Sammy Watkins gets hurt when he watches TV. Like,
I know.
Come on, man.
And of course, they're all fine for the Bucs.
Yeah. Well, guys, with that, as we look towards this game, Jay, I'll ask you first as our guest. What are the things you're looking forward to in this game coming up here? Maybe position battles, maybe, seeing what comes out of certain topics that we've been discussing. What are you looking forward to watching here as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Chiefs?
My number one thing I'm looking for is Ronald Jones. To me, I look at how that whole situation is broke down. The decision for the guy fumbles a couple weeks ago. You stay with him, and he rewards your faith with a 98-yard touchdown, almost 200 yards rushing. Then last week, it's like, all right, he gets the start again. And, I know some people didn't like that first dump off. What's that?
That's how many times he touched the ball last week.
Oh, yeah. It's just wild, man.
Yeah.
Wild.
For the audio listeners out there, Ren was holding up 5 fingers.
Yeah, I was like, he was doing the opposite. He was doing the Brady plus one.
That's how many downs we get against Chicago in the fourth quarter.
But I look at what Ronald Jones and their belief in him, and I'm just like, I saw a lot more Leonard Fournette. That first throw, the little dump off, it looked like he didn't get his head around. You want to get mad at him for that? There was also a handoff. You remember Ronald Jones fumbled on a handoff on a draw play earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
It almost happened again where, Brady had like this thing where he kind of turned to his right, and then it was like, I don't want Tom Brady doing that kind of thing where we're basing him based on, his accuracy or on handing the ball off and his agility. I mean, God bless the TB12 guy, but he's 43 freaking years old. I mean, let's put things in perspective here. But man, I mean, what kind of message are you sending to Ronald Jones after 1 week where he did something way more egregious than he did in the last game by fumbling the football, and you stayed with him, and he rewards that faith in him and having a career game? I mean, the guy, I believe, is still third in rushing yards in the National Football League, and there was kind of a 50-50 split, it seemed like, if not more, towards Leonard Fournette, based on, just interaction and everything, just being involved in the play. But it's a little mind-boggling to me. If Ronald Jones is your guy, you got to stay with him week in and week out. I understand riding the hot hand, but it wasn't like Leonard Fournette had a hot hand last week. If anything, that was colder than a polar bear's toenail. I mean, come on, you got to steal the Outcast from back in the day. But I mean, I don't get that. They have to understand what their identity is. And if I ask you two fellas, what's the identity of this Buccaneers team on offense? I think we might get 3 different answers. And that's why a team like the Rams can beat you, because they know, hey, we're going to have multiple guys in motion. We're going to make sure that we're not going to have 2 deep routes. We can't wait for routes to develop. We're going to dump that ball off. We're going to let the yak take care of itself with the Cup and the Woods. And we're going to mix that 3-headed monster we have as the running back position. We still don't have that with the Buccaneers. Where are the Buccaneers going to go on third down? Are they going to go to AB? Are they going to go to Godwin? Are they going to go to Evans? Are they going to go to Gronk? Does Brate get a throw? That's who turned the ball over, on a throw to Cameron Brate last week. Who's your running back on short yardage situations? There's so many questions as a football fan that you can answer, that you can answer for other teams that aren't even as good as the Buccaneers, but they don't have an identity yet. And I think that's why they struggle, and that's why they have inconsistent performances, especially on offense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I started the hashtag, which I did it for like 2 days and quit, but like Free Rojo. I started it right after that second Panthers game. It's like the guy's been the workhorse 4 times in his whole entire career, and he has 100 yards in every single game, and they're 3-1. The only time he went over 100 and they didn't win, and they didn't feed him the ball, and he went over 100 because he always does when you do. And he doesn't have to split carries with the Chicago game. He got 101 yards and they lost the Bears game. And we can go on and on and on and on and talk about how crazy and goofy that Chicago game was. But yeah, I think with all the speed you talked about, with all the motion, the jet sweep motion, all the guys that are fast, everyone's healthy. Patrick Mahomes, they've got. Hey, by the way, everybody, in case you forgot, they have Le'Veon Bell, the backs up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I really want. I'm looking to see the Bucs control the clock with the run. Kansas City's, not the Rams, and I thought the Bucs ran. I don't want to say well, but I think they did good enough running the ball against the Rams when they tried to run it. Totally abandoned in the third quarter. Didn't get that at all. And then on defensively, I'm really looking for Devin White again because of all the eye candy, the jet sweep motions, all the speed guys. Devin White's going to have to play discipline. I was really worried about the Rams game. I thought he did probably his best job of the year in coverage against the Rams, not getting fooled, not over pursuing, and still being that heat-seeking missile in the run game. I thought it was a really good game for him, even if he did get. I think he was like tied for second with tackles. So he didn't have a splash play, but sort of like the mundane day in. He wasn't a liability in the pass game against the Rams. Didn't tackle nearly as well as I thought he would. But that was for everybody, especially in that first half. So again, I'm looking at Devin White. If Devin White has a game where at the end you're like he could be the MVP of the team, I think the Bucs will be in the game and we have a good shot of winning at the end. And the main reason is because I think they should feed the ball to Rojo and keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, and just do what the Giants did to us, do what the Rams did to us. Just get it out quick, short, 5, 6, 7 yards. Keep it second down and manageable, third down and manageable, and just chunk it down the field. Because like Jay said, their secondary isn't that great. You do not have to push the ball down the field, even though you can against this team, unlike you could with the Rams, which they try to do it anyway. This is the game to curb your enthusiasm and just be a mature play caller and just take the 6, 7, 8 yards and take the 7.5 minute drive and give them the ball and hope they punt a couple of times. And at the end of the day, you're winning 33-31.
I'll tell you guys this. I am not looking super hopeful to this game. This is me.
Why?
I'm not. Right. I will also say this. I do not believe that the Chiefs are unbeatable. And their record I know right now is 9-1. They're still beatable. You can do that. I just don't know that this team is going to put it together to be able to do that. And it's not just this team, but I've got two things. One is exactly what Jay said. And people have been listening to this show for the last, 4 or 5 weeks. This will sound familiar. Rojo gets his touches. I'm watching for Rojo, 20 touches, 20 plus touches a game. You give him that. I don't care. I don't care how far down we get in the score and you got to start throwing the damn ball. I don't care. Give it to Rojo. 29. It's only 5 times a quarter. That's it. 5 times a quarter. That's all I want to see. It goes to Rojo, not Fournette, not the running back position, to Rojo, to that guy. I want to see that. I also want to see it going to Mike Evans more. You talk about the identity of the team. Jay, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense has an identity, but the team doesn't know it itself. You know what the identity is? You go to Rojo, you go to Mike, and everybody else gets to split. When you really need a pinch situation, you go to Chris Godwin. But you mostly throw to Mike. You mostly let Rojo run it. You go to Chris when you need something good, and you've got Brate down there in the end zone to do something. And what the hell is going on with AB? I don't know. But that's what this team is. And they haven't seemed to figure that out about themselves yet. And so I'm looking at that. But the other thing that I'm looking, and this has become a repeated storyline over the course of this year, and I'm watching for it, is I want to see how the coaches perform. Is this coaching staff going to get out-coached yet again by a guy like Andy Reid, who is phenomenal at what he does?
Yeah, but now out coaching people before he was thin.
Right.
which was never.
Right. And you got Eric Bieniemy, who a lot of people are calling to be, actually, they were calling for him to be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before Dirk Cutter got here. And they were calling for it again when Dirk Cutter got fired. And I hear people calling for it now as people are starting to call for Bruce Arians' job. And I'm not calling for that job right now. I'm just saying these are the two guys that are coming in. And that's why I'm not looking super hopeful, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, while I think they have an identity, they don't know it themselves yet and they don't follow it. And this team has been getting out coached. And a lot of that's because they just don't seem to know what they're doing. So those are the things I'm looking for. Can this team pull its head out of its ass? Because their head has been up their ass the last bunch of games. It just has been. Can they get it together? Because that if they do, I believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I 100% believe they can do it. I was just looking at it. You compare the two teams. As far as the points both teams have scored over the course of the year, the Chiefs have scored 321 points. Do you know how many points the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have scored? 320. Damn near identical, right? You know where the difference is with the points scored against? Just a quick little thing. The Kansas City Chiefs have had 214 points scored on them. Tampa Bay Buccaneers have had 253. And the difference is 9-1 and 7-4. 7-4. And that's what I'm looking for. Can they go out and get Rojo his touches, get Mike Evans his touches, and can the coaches coach? Can they not be out coached?
Their game plan coming out of the first quarter's got to work. No time for adjustments this game. Whatever they decide, when they leave one buck, whatever they installed this week, it's got to click right away.
Yeah.
And it's going to start with no soft zones, being aggressive on defense, blah, 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 whatever we've been talking about, because that's what the defense does best. Like, defense is best downhill. Take your chances deep. We're going to have to do it. Of course, Patrick Mahomes probably hit him, but whatever. He's also can just pick you apart and march right down the field and zone. It's going to be worse than watching Drew Brees because it's going to happen faster. And he'll be able to get out of the pocket. So, yeah, whatever they decide, man, they have to be right this time. And, I don't really have a lot of faith in it because of recently biased. Like they haven't had the best game plans coming out right away.
Yeah. Well, guys, with that, why don't we go ahead and wrap up the show? This is kind of the fun part where this is our homage to the godfather of Buccaneers podcasting, Derek over at What the Buck. Predictive MVPs. Jay, I'll let you go first. Who do you predict the Tampa Bay Buccaneers MVP will be for this game against the Kansas City Chiefs?
I know this probably won't be the most popular pick, but I think Antonio Brown's the guy. I think he gets a lot of targets. I think he gets a lot of receptions. I just think way that they're going to try to break everything down with this offense, trying to get the ball out of Brady's hands quickly, especially if the offensive line is banged up a little bit. I'm looking at an Antonio Brown game where he's either going over 10 catches or over 100 yards with multiple scores, kind of waiting for that breakout game for Antonio Brown. For them to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to have to put up points, and I think Antonio Brown's going to be the guy. So I'm going to say 9 catches for $112 and 2 scores.
Wow. All right.
I like it. I think the predictive MVP is going to be someone on defense because I don't really care who the MVP is if we lose. And I think there's going to have to be a splash play on defense to be able to win this game. I don't think Andy Reid's stupid enough to try to pick on Carlton Davis, especially with Cockrell out there. I don't think they're dumb enough to try to throw it over the top consistently. So it's going to come down to the linebackers. I have no faith that Todd Bowles is really not going to get out of that soft zone and say we're going to get home with 4. So I even though it's so weird, it's like we don't get pressure, and we're like second in the league in sacks. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna go with Devin White, and I hope he makes a splash play or 2. And if he does, I think the Bucs have a good shot at winning that.
I'm going to go with someone who I think this hasn't been my predictive MVP for the last 2 games, but I think if we look back and you look at who is the skull, who is the actual MVP of the last 2 games, the last 2, whatever. I think it's JPP. I think if we when we get on the backside of this game and you look and go, okay, who was the best player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, win or lose? I think JPP is he's been the most consistent player anyway. So he's the guy that I'm naming as my predictive MVP. Dub over in the chat room names Rojo as his predictive MVP.
Good. And
I think we got Jay back here. We lost Jay just a second ago.
Yeah. He decided that he doesn't like you anymore.
Yeah, there he is. He's back now. Jay, I had just named Ren had named Devin White as his predictive MVP. I've just named JPP as mine. What do you think?
I don't think we can hear him.
Uh-oh. Jay, Jay, we don't want to have your microphone, buddy. We can't hear you. He's going to work on that here for just a moment. So, but yeah, JPP, and I'll even go on another prediction. JPP gets a third interception this week. 3 in a row for the 8-fingered man.
Is he going to be drop back in coverage, or is he going to get it like in the flat, or is it going to be like a tip ball that he gets?
He's going to be in the middle of a sack, and he'll get the interception that way.
So like somebody hits his arm and it goes in the air and he catches it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think he will touch the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, at the exact same time as somebody else does. So it's a split sack, but the ball is going to get tossed up and JPP catches it and comes down with it.
What if he gets ruled a fumble? Does that count?
No, I think it's good. Yes. No, it all be the same.
Right.
It'll all be the same. Right. So I think Jay has I think we're going to try to figure that out, but we're here at the end of the show.
He's doing his best.
He's doing his best, but we are here at the end of the show. So Jay Retcher, everybody, Jay Retcher over at WDAE. He has graciously joined. This is what we call vamping, Ren, trying to fill time for him.
Okay.
Is he back?
Well, we can talk about Scotty Miller for a little bit if you want to.
Do you have something about Scotty you want to talk about real quick?
He, apparently he's been injured a lot.
That's what they say. That's what they say, but he's not been on the injury report, so I don't know how much faith I put into that. So.
I could use my joke about how too bad there's not 2 seasoned podcasters here to be able to fill time and riff. Could always use that one.
Problem is we have just talked about everything that there is to talk about, honestly. So Jay, I don't know if you can hear us, but we are actually signing off right now. So that is Jay Retcher from WDAE. Thanks so much, Jay. We will talk to you when we can actually have a conversation with you in the future. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really. And we'll see you on a future episode here of the Pewtercast. And guys, make sure you check out everything that Jay is doing over with his show over at WDAE. Ren, why don't you tell the folks where they can find you out there this weekend if they want to get in touch with you?
Can you hear me? I just want to see if it's not contagious.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. The best place to find me is on Twitter, as always, at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
And if you guys want to get in touch with me, you can find me at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias. And the show is at the Pewtercast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Please keep in mind anything you send us we could use on a future episode of the Pewtercast. Guys, make sure you join us. Smash that subscribe button. Click the bell icon. Turn on those notifications so you can be notified right as Ren and I go live with the Pewtercast Live, taking your phone calls, taking your video chats as we talk about the game that was. Are we celebrating, or are we ripping the team a new one for yet another week?
Or are we starting to really sweat the playoffs? Talk about how good. Well, Detroit is like they could beat us.
Right. Are we really? What about the Falcons? I don't know. They're coming on. Plus, they got 2 of our former head coaches over there.
It's really hard to beat a team twice in 4 weeks.
Right. It's every week. It's a week-to-week league. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Calvin
so
Cook's
which one is it going to be?
Rushing.
You guys join us for that. And until next time, guys, go Bucs.